Welcome to the Film Ticket with Daniel and Kazek. We talk only films. No gossip, no drama, no bullshit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Ticket. I'm your host, Kazek Israni-Winger, with Daniel Roers over here, and our producer, David Hindman. Today, we have a lot of things to talk about. I'm about to throw it over to Daniel to start us off.
Well, thank you, Kazek. It's great to be back here for another week. So today, right off the bat, we're going to be talking about some great movies we've seen recently. Not our all-time favorites, but just absolutely great films. So we're going to start off today, and we're going to talk about Anchorman. So
This is one of your favorite films.
one of
isn't
my
it?
favorite films of all time. Honestly, my most quotable film. It's a very quotable film, very funny film. Written by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay. They were both on SNL, and they were really funny on SNL. I mean, Adam
McKay was on SNL.
Yeah, that's how they met. They were on SNL
Really?
together.
Yeah,
Adam McKay and Will Ferrell wrote a lot of the sketches. I don't know if Adam McKay actually was
actor.
I don't know if Adam McKay was actually an actor. I know Will Ferrell, of course, was an actor on SNL, very popular, very funny. And so here's one thing: when I was doing my research about Anchorman, what we saw in theaters was not the first thing they thought of when they were writing the script. So the first idea that they came up with was Ron Burgundy was flying to Philadelphia to be at a conference with a bunch of other newscasters, and his plane goes down, and he's like in the woods in Philadelphia and has to survive.
That sounds awful.
That was literally like the first thing, and then they gave it to a director. Gosh, in the article it said who it was, but I don't remember the actual name. And he said, "Yeah, this needs a lot of work." So yeah, like that was the original idea for Anchorman. And I read it, and then they said in the article, I can't remember the specific quote. I'm blanking right now, but he said, "Go back and just have fun writing something." And so Will Ferrell and Adam McKay sat down, and they had this idea for, what we saw in theaters. And I mean, I think they struck gold on that second time around instead of that first time, because I didn't even want to see that first. I didn't even want to see the first take of what they came up with.
Really? Yeah, because that first scenario you pitched. Wow, that sounds awful. I wouldn't even
if it was a Quentin Tarantino film. Like, I'd still be like, eh.
And there's probably just be blood everywhere.
It would probably just be just bloody injuries. Oh my gosh. No, but okay, I love Anchorman because right off the bat, it gives you just the first 5 seconds of the film give you just a taste of what the entire film is going to be like. And the first 5 seconds, black screen, all of a sudden white text appears. The following is based on true events. Only the names, locations, and events have been changed. That's literally how they start the film. I'm just like, that's the greatest opening to a film because you get a sense of how outrageous it's going to be.
Yeah, I like the cast of Anchorman. It's a good cast, and it's such an out of this world weird comedy that like it's almost like I don't want to make this is kind of a weird reference, but it's almost like a really long Family Guy episode where things they do don't really have repercussions.
Please, David.
I was gonna say it sort of reminds me a lot of like the old school like the Airplane movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh. Where just everything happens for like no reason at all. Yeah, no, that's definitely what Anchorman reminded me. I mean, I saw Anchorman first, but like looking back at it.
That is a really good point. We just got a point from our producer, David. Wow. It is just like the Airplane films where there's really no repercussions. And it's just such random comedy.
Yeah,
you're like, okay.
It's a lot of just like it's like just a lot of little sketches put into one. Like you can really taste the SNL writing that Adam McKay and Will Ferrell came from, where it is, like, oh, just, I don't have time to go to the gym, so I'm sculpting my guns. Like, you could take all of these, break them up, put different characters, and it would still make sense as an SNL episode.
Actually, interestingly enough, we're looking here on the IMDb page for it, and I didn't know that Seth Rogen had a cameo in this.
No, he didn't.
He did? Seth Rogen was the eager cameraman in Anchorman.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I do remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but so they're at the cat fashion show, and Veronica Corningstone's sitting there, and she's just like looking through her papers. Seth Rogen's at the camera, and she's like, "Miss Corningstone, I'm getting some great stuff," and she's just like, "I don't care. Let's finish this." Seth Rogen has made. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I forgot about that because he's kind of with that big crew of people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that I didn't even realize he was in.
So it's kind of weird. So the path that Anchorman actually took to get to the box office was a little interesting because no one wanted to produce this film. No one wanted anything to do with this film because as it is now, it's just a bunch of SNL sketches. But all these actors looked at it and they were like, "Why isn't this film getting made?" Because it's freaking hilarious. But all the agencies didn't want to take the risk of it. Which now I bet they're kicking themselves for not taking that risk because this film is phenomenal. But you remember that fight scene, the cameo fight scene about halfway through the film?
Yeah,
They're on
it's the best scene.
That is the best scene, I think, because then they brought it back in Anchorman 2, but Anchorman 2 should never have been made. But they brought it back in Anchorman 2. But so I was looking at this and I was doing a little research on it. So that day they made that, it was 115 degrees.
Outside?
It was outside. It was
What?
115 degrees, and they worked on this for something like 8 hours.
And they were shooting outside.
They were
right?
shooting outside for 8 hours, and everybody's in just those thick, all those thick
suits, right?
All those
Right.
suits, and you're sitting there, and they said Vince Vaughn said at the end of the day, he was just like, we all smelled like high school boys that just got done with a football practice, where we all just smelled so rancid. Like that was the end of their day, and 115, they're all trying to shoot. Everyone's trying to look like, hey, we're not dying right now.
Yeah, and interestingly, that puts it on record. A lot of people think that Will Ferrell and his crew of whackable comedians that they're they don't really try hard when they're making their stuff, but that's proof that they really care about what they're making, and if they're willing to be in 115-degree temperatures for 8 hours, then that's ridiculous.
No, that is commitment to a funny film. I just love this film. Makes me laugh every single time I watch it. It's great. First time my brother and I watched it, he's like, "I'm about to change your life." That's how he prefaced this movie to me, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I could never go another day without knowing that Anchorman wasn't there. I couldn't have done it. It was hilarious."
Did you guys know that Jack Black was in that movie as well?
Yeah, he's the guy that kicks the dog off the...
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't notice that the first 7 times I saw the movie, and I was like, "Oh wait, that's Jack Black."
I think that might be one of my favorite cameo appearances. Out of all the fight scenes, Jack Black, man on the bridge, like, "You destroyed the one thing I love. What do you love?" "I love a nice glass of scotch and, of course, my friend Baxter." "All right, well, now this is happening." Takes the dog, walks over to the bridge, clearly punts up puppets.
As you see now, we got Daniel laughing in the studio. Just thinking about the film. All right, so...
I apologize.
Are we ready to move on here?
Yeah, let's talk about
right.
what film do you have in store for
All right,
us?
so now a little more serious here. Interestingly enough, it's more serious than your pick. So I watched Dead Poets Society.
Oh, what a good film, though.
Yeah, so I watched Dead Poets Society, and I'd only seen clips of it in the past. Oh wow, Kazek, you haven't seen it before. What's wrong with you? But you know what? I finally came around to watch it. I watched it. I liked it. I loved it. In fact, what's his face?
Robin Williams. Robin Williams gives a performance for the ages in this one.
Of course.
I don't even know if he won it. He didn't win an Oscar for this. I think it. What did it win?
I think it won for writing.
Yeah,
it did. He got a nomination.
It won. So it won for won an Oscar for writing, but Robin Williams gives a performance of a lifetime, and yet didn't. He got a nomination for an Oscar, but didn't win. And so Ethan Hawke's in this movie, and so in an interview, he said he dropped out of college to do this film.
Really?
That, and I mean, what a good choice.
Yeah, I know. And actually, it seems, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it seems that it's interesting because people when they hear about Ethan Hawke, they're like, "Oh, I know that guy," or they don't know who it is, but they recognize him when they see him. So he's not the kind of guy that you're like, he's a big time movie star. And you don't know, not very many people have commented like, "Oh, his acting is superb" or "His acting is superior." You don't really hear bad things either. But wow, I'm amazed that he doesn't get much talk from this film, because he puts on a very good performance as this reserved kind of guy who's afraid of speaking and really has his passion for all of his classes. And you know what? It was amazing how good Ethan Hawke was in this role.
Yeah, so he said in the one scene where he's in front of the classroom and Robin Williams has his hand over his eyes. He's like, "Tell me what you see about this." And the whole movie was Robin basically mentoring Ethan Hawke, and that's how he really described it. Like that scene basically showed. I mean, Robin Williams' relationship with Ethan Hawke, that he basically took him under his wing, but. So remember it's like a montage of Robin Williams saying a bunch of Romeo and Juliet or just a bunch of Shakespearean poetry, and he's making everybody laugh. I don't even know if any of that was scripted. Do you think it was just Robin Williams looking at looking at something just like, "Is this a dagger I see before me?"
Right.
Just how much of that was? How many takes did they have to do? Because he was just like having so much fun with the cast.
Robin Williams. He's that guy that. He can improv all day. It's ridiculous how good he is at it, and it's crazy how amazing he is at it. And you know what? Let's kind of switch gears here from acting. We just went over how the acting is so great in this film. You know what? The cinematography is also very well done.
Yeah,
the scene when they're when they're first running out into the forest to have their first meeting of the Dead Poets Society. That is superb filmmaking. Peter Weir, the director, at his best there. That is spectacular filmmaking. I was mesmerized in that scene.
No, I mean it is mesmerizing is the correct word to use there. I mean, I was intrigued the entire time, and then when they're in the cave, it looks like the camera's like almost down a rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like this little view, like it's like you're an actual person in the cave, and you're watching all this happen, and it's
the scenes
wonderful.
When you see how fall is progressing and then how it becomes to winter and then how all the landscapes are covered by snow. That is brilliant. That is so amazing. That gives you a feel that you can't really explain except using one word, and that's beauty.
I mean, I think you hit that spot on right there. I mean, that's very true.
All right, so the two films we reviewed for you today was Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and Dead Poets Society, featuring Robin Williams. Both of them... Dead Poets Society came out in the 80s and Anchorman in the 2000s, so both of them are good family films for you to sit down and watch with the family.
Well, I don't know if Anchorman's technically a family film. You can't really be like, "Hey there, kids, get done with preschool. Let's watch a little Anchorman."
Oh, I'm talking about like 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds enough.
Even 10-year-olds, dude. I think I was 14 when I saw this film. I even might have been a little too young.
All right, so there are some parental elements in these films. But you know what? If you're looking for something to entertain you for a couple hours, go with Anchorman, Legend of Ron Burgundy, or Dead Poets Society.
Both masterpieces in their own different genres. I mean, Dead Poets Society, a drama comedy, and I mean, of course, Anchorman, a comedy, and both superb films, probably top 20 films in their own right. It's unbelievable. And
I agree with you.
Robin Williams basically made. If you put any other actor in Dead Poets Society, you think it would have been as good as it was? I mean, okay, Robin Williams in it was not amazing, but if you put somebody else in there, how do you think it would be?
So Dustin Hoffman was apparently originally supposed to star in it instead of Williams, I believe, and he's going to also direct it as well.
That doesn't really surprise me. I feel like Dustin Hoffman could do a good job at that role. I don't think he could do it as good as Robin Williams, but.
You know, I've never been a Dustin Hoffman fan.
Really?
If I'm being honest right now,
well, have you seen any of his older films?
I haven't.
Right.
I really haven't. But
that's when he was good, right?
That was
not like
no,
he sucks now.
He did kind of dive bomb, but but here's the thing: I put Robin Williams on a pedestal,
right?
Because of his comedy, because of Hook. I put him on a dang pedestal. So if I say if there's anybody else that could do it as good as Robin did, instantly in my mind I'm going no, because I think Robin Williams was amazing.
Well, and Dustin Hoffman, a year prior to this, I believe he was the Rain Man with Tom Cruise, and
he was,
and so that was a spectacular role for him. So I think it was okay that it went to Robin Williams.
It was estimated about 15% of Robin Williams' lines were improvised in that film.
Really?
Yeah.
He has a lot of lines too.
He allegedly was really stiff about his role, and then they're just kind of go with it, and then he started improvising, and a really big chunk of his lines are improvised now.
Oh. That doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. That number seems a little low.
Really?
Yeah, because Robin Williams is the king of improv.
Well, apparently, according to reports we've had, he seemed pretty intense about this role. So maybe he wasn't as comfortable improvising as he would with
the writing was so unique. It was so beautiful.
With his cameos, he can go whatever he wants, right?
Yeah. Why would you want to ruin such great writing with improv? But yeah, I definitely see that.
All right. So yeah.
So now we're gonna talk about movies, but these movies are movies that had spectacular casts but failed at the box office. But not failed at the box office. Okay, these are movies that had fantastic casts, fantastic directors, but completely failed. So the movie we're going to be talking about today is The Monuments Men, made in 2014, and it was written and directed by George Clooney. I'm sorry for the pause there, because right off the bat, I have a problem with George Clooney writing, directing, and starring in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I watched it, and he gave himself all the motivational speeches. He gave himself everything. The directing wasn't very good.
Right.
It could have been done better.
Agree.
And there's a part of me that's like, oh, Steven Spielberg, if he directed this, it would have been amazing. But like Robin Williams, I put Steven Spielberg on a pedestal. Like, no one can ever top a Steven Spielberg. Like, I don't think anybody can top George Lucas because he made Star Wars. That is just that's my personal bias, if I'm being honest. Like, I put Star Wars on a dang pedestal, so I put George Lucas
I don't know.
up
George
there with
Lucas has
it.
made some crappy shit.
He has made some crappy films, but I still put him up there because of Star Wars. I do. I mean, what did you think of this film?
Okay, so you know what like you said, dynamite cast. You had Matt Damon, you had Bill Murray, you had John Goodman, George Clooney. You know, you had all those big time guys, right? I mean, Bill Murray and John Goodman, you know, kind of older at this point, but you know what? They can still hold a role.
Still really deliver.
Lost in Translation proved that for Bill Murray. 10 Cloverfield Lane proved that for John Goodman. So it's so disappointing to see that such a good cast and such a good, well-rounded pair of actors there, or a group of actors there, I should say, that they failed. You know, and I think you're right that George Clooney writing and directing probably was the downfall. Now I could see if this movie was like a Coen film, like the Coen Brothers film, or maybe even like a I don't know, maybe even a Tarantino film, probably not, but I could see it really being a Coen brother film, because the Coens already used Matt Damon and George Clooney a ton, and I feel like they would have tackled the subject matter in an interesting way.
I feel like if it would have been a Tarantino film, you would have lost the history behind it.
You're probably right, because he already did Inglourious Basterds, too.
I mean, like, he did Inglourious Basterds, but even if you were like, hey, here's this miraculous story about these men who went in and they were trying to recover all this art, Tarantino would be like, screw that, they're all going to die! Like, he would take this little piece and he would be like, we're gonna have some fun with it. So I can never really see this being a Tarantino film, because the story behind it, the actual historical value this film has, is remarkable. But I feel like they just dropped the ball, because the story itself is amazing. I mean, these 7 people going in, and then after years it turned into 300 people looking for all this art, 300 architects, painters, all this, 300 looking for art. And I feel like George Clooney really dropped the ball.
Yeah, you know, and like I said, I would have totally not been surprised if this had been a Coen Brothers film, or like you said, a Spielberg film, because I feel like it would have been better portrayed that way. But yeah, you're right. George Clooney totally dropped the ball, and I don't want to put too much blame on Clooney for doing these things, but it really seemed like he needed to take the blame on that one.
Yeah, it was just disappointing.
I think this would have been kind of interesting as a Clint Eastwood film.
Oh my gosh,
that would have. That's a good take.
Tell us your thoughts about that.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Why do you think that?
Just like looking through some of the stuff he's done, like with more recently, like I remember Gran Torino. Let me think. He did like the.
He did Trouble with the Curve, a recent film that came out, I think, in 2016.
Is that with Justin Timberlake?
Yeah, it's just it's with Justin Timberlake and Amy Adams.
Oh, okay.
And the I forget who did the Captain Phillips movie.
That was Spielberg?
I believe that was Spielberg. That was Spielberg. We're gonna check that.
I think I think either Clint Eastwood or Steven Spielberg would have been fantastic for this. Because Clint Eastwood's just got this like style that's just like so.
It was actually Paul Greengrass.
Oh, well, that would have worked.
There was a very good historical accuracy behind Captain Phillips that was captured quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And that that director, it would have been good for like the historic. I think Clint Eastwood would have been really good, because like there's just like this simplicity to it that I think would have changed like sort of the feel. Because in this movie, I don't know about you guys, it felt like there was a lot happening, but at the same time there was nothing happening, because like the storyline just kind of fell flat, and you had like all these characters and like they were going through these things, which like you can make the argument that like they were all like really crap and like super cartoony characters, but like they were still going through some stuff as far as like their development goes. And I think Clint Eastwood might have done like something that would have been cool to that.
Yeah. When I was reading some articles about this, one line really stood out to me, and it said, "Doesn't ask you to think too hard." In preface to this film, it doesn't. And okay, so if you were told, "Hey, this movie doesn't ask you to think too hard, and it's about World War II, it's historically accurate," would you want to watch it? Because isn't a film that's almost historically accurate, don't you almost want to think?
Right. If you're going to go see a film of such a terrible tragedy as of World War II, I feel like it wouldn't be, oh, this is just a simple matter we can fix.
I want to watch a film. I don't want to watch a National Geographic documentary.
Right, exactly.
Or not National Geographic. Well, I don't want to watch a History Channel documentary.
Like TV movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it seemed like Schindler's List, it wasn't too complex, but it had so much raw emotion to it that it really almost came off as complex emotionally, not necessarily like what's going to happen. It was more like, how can I take this, because this is so intense.
So
does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm just like, but it's still almost like, even though it had a lot of raw emotions, it still almost made you think.
Yeah.
And I mean,
right.
Like, so does the thinking come from the story, or does it come from the emotions that the characters show?
It can come from anything, really.
True.
Yeah, if you think about like other World War II movies, like Hacksaw Ridge or like Saving Private Ryan, you don't have to think too hard on those. They're just like this action movie.
And especially if it's like a World War II historical film like that, where there's so much tragedy and stuff, they don't need the story to be complex, because it's just so emotional that you can't really. It's just how you perceive it, not necessarily how you figure out the story.
Yeah, that's really true. And another thing with Clooney's writing, another quote that I had from a New York Times article. It said Clooney almost turns the characters into cartoons, and it almost, to me, when I was looking at all these characters, when I was watching this film, they almost seemed like they could fit in with the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you could, because like it was help me out, because one of them was like a drunkie almost, and one of them was like, if you took
one was a
yeah, so they can almost fit in with they almost seem like they could fit in with the Seven Dwarves, these characters. That's how Clooney really wrote it. So I give a lot of like the how is it? I'm sorry. I give a lot of the downfall of this film to Clooney's writing right on.
This movie, to me, it kind of seemed like an episode of like the old A-Team TV show, where it's like,
wow,
oh,
you're right.
We need your help. Only these guys can help us. We'll do it, and we're gonna do it this specific way. And
then it just kind of ends.
And then it just kind of ends.
Right, and
you're
like,
I guess conflict solved.
You can go. So you can either go rent Monuments Men, or you can read the book that the movie is based off. It's called Monuments Men: Allied Heroes, Nazi Thieves, and the Greatest Treasure Hunt in History.
I would assume the book is probably
better. I would
better.
really guess the book is going to be way the heck better than the film. So if you like to read, please get this book. It's going to be great.
I'm pretty sure the webpage for the actual Monuments Men is probably more entertaining. I'll look it up real quick.
All right, so yeah, thanks, David.
All right, so we're after we look at funny web pages, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to our final segment where we debate a film. So today we are gonna talk about the Blair Witch Project.
All right, and there's a lot of split audiences for the Blair Witch Project. I'm sure some of you that are listening, I think that a lot of you that are listening, you have a split opinion on it. Some people think it's the most boring film of like the last 20, 25, 30 years, and others think it's the greatest horror movie of all time. So Daniel, what's your take on it?
I didn't much care for the Blair Witch Project, mainly because nothing really scary happens. If you watch it, like they're in a tent and all of a sudden things start shaking. It's like, ooh, the wind.
That is scary.
Ooh. Okay, I was sitting. Okay, well, did you really get scared by that?
Okay, I get scared by a lot of things really
Yeah,
easily.
somebody could tap. Somebody could run down the hall. You could be walking out of a room, and you'd be like, ah! That is you in a nutshell,
that
my
literally
friend.
happened 15 minutes
That
ago.
literally happened like 20 minutes before we actually recorded this. And so, big problem with me, and this is the problem with shaky footage, that the whole film was so shaky, it made me want to vomit.
It's like a tilt-a-whirl.
Yeah, it felt like a roller coaster, and I was just like, okay, there we go. It was awful. I mean, get a tripod, please. There's nothing wrong with a monopod, people. There's nothing wrong with it. You can walk around the woods with a monopod. It's almost a hiking stick. I mean, honestly.
That's kind of cool. That would be cool. Is that all you got so far?
No. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
And then, okay, they argue too much about a map. Like, where's the map? We need to follow the map. Oh, my God. Well, I got rid of the map.
I gave you the map,
I gave
Heather.
you the map. I threw the map in this river because I didn't want to deal with it. First off, why would you throw away the map? Spoiler alert. And then, the ending was like, I didn't care much for the ending.
Because it just ended.
It just ended. And I was like, okay, I need more things here. I need more things. It's like somebody that's terrible at telling a story, trying to tell a story, and at the very end, they're like, yeah, that just happened.
You know, and I agree with you. Though there are some parts that make you want to, hurl. There are some parts that are kind of a letdown. But you know what? I think why this movie was such a big success is because they went all out with the ad campaigns. They made it seem like such a real thing. They came up with posters like these people are missing, and so this is legitimate found footage, and it scared so many people that, oh my goodness, this is real. You know what? That hadn't been exploited before. Like this is based off of a true story. I mean, that may have been, but this was like, it's a totally fictional thing, but they were playing it up as, wow, this is really real. These people are missing, despite those actors being on like Dave Letterman and stuff like that. People are just
really ruined the illusion of the film.
But this was after the film had come out, right? So then it was kind of, but yeah, they went all out with the ad campaigns. Found footage films hadn't existed prior to this. I mean, maybe a couple, but they weren't such a big thing in horror like they are now with the Paranormal Activity films and I think some of the Insidious films. So it was such a new thing then. And you know what? It creates such an atmosphere. It creates the woods to be such a creepy place without resulting to quick jump scares or oh no, here's a monster or here's a witch. It gives an eerie sense that you don't know what's coming, and that's a part of the scariness. Yeah, the end might be a letdown to all of that, but while you're in the whole experience, it changes something.
No, I like your point there, but I think there's something that's unsaid about you need a good ending. Because you can build it up, you can build this up, you can make it really scary. It's not, as you pointed out, not like jump out saying boo, scary, but then if you have the ending, then you almost leave your audience with an unfelt resolution. And they're like, wait, what?
And you know what? In my opinion, that is intentional because that's unsettling just like the rest of the film.
I wasn't unsettled. I was disappointed.
You were disappointed?
I was disappointed.
Really?
I was like, no, I need a resolution.
All right.
But that's me. I like resolutions.
I mean, that's like an American audience thing, right?
That is an American audience. I mean, other audiences are just like, oh, this is interesting. This is fun.
Right. And I think such the disappointment and such the unsettling ending where no restraint on spoilers here. So if you haven't seen it, we're gonna just go watch it.
Yeah, we're gonna be spoiling it.
We're gonna
you should have paused it before we started talking about the film.
At the end when you just see him standing there, it's so unsettling and so weird, and then how she just drops the camera and it ends. That is just on par with the rest of the film, just being so weird and so it doesn't make you feel good watching the film just because all of these things happen. And one of the parts that I thought was actually a very powerful emotional part was the part when one of the guys has disappeared and now it's just Heather and the other dude, and they're they're both crying and they're basically cuddling together because they know they're not going to come out alive. And that is so raw and so emotional. It can be used in any type of situation. It doesn't need to be a horror film. You can use that in a war film. You can use that in a drama. You can use it into a comedy. It works on so many levels that it really hit me in an emotional spot, which I didn't think I was going to get. I thought it was just going to be all scares.
So I love this movie for quite a few reasons. I watched it. This was like one of the first horror movies I had watched. And I love it because it's just so, I guess, different from the general horror genre. Like, skip over everything that it sort of like started with the found footage sort of film and like the advertising campaign that was behind it, and even the stuff they did like on set to just like mess with the actors and like get completely unknown people. This film at its core is more of like a psychological horror to me, because it's just sort of like these three people and they're just slowly breaking down. Like when they when they like punt the map because he thinks it's useless because the girl that's had the map the whole time like was just getting lost, and then like slowly just finding all the stick figures, with the guy disappearing, and then the girl finding the blood but not telling what's his name? Is it John, I think?
Oh, yeah, I don't remember their names.
And then even the one scene which you can see in the
Josh
little
and
photo
Mike.
section of the IMDb, when it's just the girl and it's the close-up of her face and the flashlight, and she's just apologizing for everything because she's just broken down. And like a lot of what you said, it's just so like unsettling, especially at the time that it came out. I mean, I was born when this thing came out, so I wouldn't know. But like looking back on it, like when it ended and everyone was just dead, it's like, oh my God, did I just see 3 people get killed? Like, did they actually just show this to me? Like that personally like messed me up when I watched
Right.
this.
All right, well, thanks for your take, David. Do you have anything else?
No, except I really enjoy found footage films. I like how they're like so different.
Right.
Like some of them are pretty crap, like
Right.
The like Contagion one or whatever, but like Cloverfield and Chronicle.
Right. Those are
Freaking
good
love
films.
those.
One interesting thing I was reading about this film, it was half of it wasn't even scripted. Like when they were like yelling at each other and stuff, like before, because they'd be camping out, and then before they would start, the director would hand the actors like an envelope, and inside would be like what I need you to argue about, or like what the situation is. Like you need to be mad because there's a lost map, and you did this, and you did this, and it was all natural, and they all messed with the actors, and it was all they wanted raw, as you guys said, raw, natural emotion.
Yeah,
was
so
betrayed.
so we kind of finished up the argument part here, but let's just really quickly for a minute or two, I'm gonna just tell you the ending, and for those of you that don't understand,
Why would you tell them the ending?
here is what happens at the end.
Why?
Because I want to talk about this too.
Because the ending's great. So
I'm so sorry to all my listeners. I'm so sorry.
So at the beginning of the film,
Oh.
when they're filming people, the lady says that maybe we shouldn't tell them the end.
We shouldn't tell them the end.
Let's just talk about it later.
We'll talk about it later.
We will
Okay.
talk. We will talk about this next week. We can talk about the.
Okay,
we can
alright.
talk about the ending next week.
All right, so that ends our argument section, and I really badly want to talk to you about the end of this film.
When
but-
it turns out that Darth Vader was Luke's father, holy crap, guys!
all right, that is not the same film.
Wait. What happened? What happened? What?
All
What are you
right,
talking about?
So
I haven't seen number 5 yet.
So this has been Kazek Israni-Winger, Daniel Roers, and David Hindman. The film ticket.
Leave us a comment on whatever platform you're watching, like our Facebook page.
Tune in next week for episode 3. Thank you very much for tuning in.